One life. One lifetime. What does it all add up to? Imagine that you could see, piled up in front of you, all the things that you will ever use and produce in your lifetime. How many cups of tea will you drink? And how many tons of feces will you flush away? How many words will you speak? How many tears will you cry? By the end of this film, for the first time ever, you are going to be able to see your entire life laid out in front of you. This is the story of my life, your life, an average life. This is the story of your human footprint. The impact that each person makes on the planet varies enormously. Everyone is different, but together, all 6.5 billion of us, we become an average. So we have taken an average boy and girl. Through them, we've calculated the impact of an average life. A 2,475,576,000 seconds journey from the cradle to the grave. So where should we begin? The most important job facing us during our lives is to get enough calories on board to stay alive. Our bodies need a steady stream of energy similar to the amount required to power a 100-watt light bulb. And, in the beginning, it is all going to come from milk. So this is the first thing we're going to show you. Your lifetime's consumption of milk. This is what it would look like if every pint was delivered to your house on the same day. Over time, all those cups of tea, bowls of cereal and skinny lattes will add up to this, a staggering 15,951 pints. We base most of our calculations on Britain. We've used the life of someone living there to represent an average member of the human race and to see what impact they have on the world around them. Some people will drink more milk, some will drink less. 16,000 pints is the average for someone living in Northern Europe. However, the figures would be very different elsewhere in the world. Digesting such large quantities of dairy products requires specialized enzymes. If someone from the Far East tried to drink this much milk, it would cause explosive diarrhea. Dealing with such outbursts is never easy, particularly when children are yet to be potty trained. Which is why we are all wrapped in nappies during the first 2.5 years of our life. So how many times will nappies require changing over this time? It adds up to this, 3,800 nappies. Although rather convenient for parents, all these nappies put a big burden on the wider society. Leaving aside the oil, trees and energy we use to make them, each nappy is only used for a few hours before being chucked away. And we throw away billions of them a year, making them one of the single largest contributor to landfill. And the plastics in nappies that prevent leakage could take up to 500 years to decompose. And that is just one of the reasons why, by the time we reach 2 years old, children in the developed world will already have been responsible for more carbon dioxide emissions than someone in Tanzania will generate in a lifetime. But we won't be in nappies drinking milk forever. It won't be long before we move on to solid food. And one thing that most of us will go for is some sort of meat. Over a lifetime, this is what we will eat. 4 head of cattle. 21 sheep. And 15 pigs. However, it's the chicken who bears the brunt of our carnivorous tendencies. We will eat just over 1,200 of them over our lifetime. Not content with eating vast amounts of chicken, we will also eat this many of their unborn young. This is 13,345 eggs. Things like meat and eggs are essential in our diet. They provide protein, which are broken down into amino acids, the basic building blocks we use to build and repair our bodies. But for day-to-day energy, our bodies are going to need carbohydrates. Bread in some form or another appears in virtually every culture in the world. And today we eat an average of 55 loaves a year, which adds up to 4,283 in a lifetime. As well as carbohydrates and protein, we should all eat a healthy amount of fruit and vegetables. 5 portions a day would seem a reasonable amount. This apple is made up of 5,272 apples, the amount you'll eat in your life. This carrot is made from the 10,866 individual carrots we will eat in our lifetime. Carrots can be pulled straight from the ground, washed and eaten. Or they can be processed, peeled, sealed in cellophane and sold at 7 times the original price. We seem to have fallen in love with everything nicely washed, packed and wrapped. And all this wrapping soon adds up. Each of us will throw away this much packaging from food items alone. Over a lifetime, this adds up to 8.5 tons in total. As we grow up, despite our best endeavours, our diets are unlikely to be made up entirely of protein, carbohydrates, fruit and veg. Most of us will not be able to resist the lure of fast food, eating vast quantities of burgers, chips and crisps. And who amongst us doesn't like the odd bar of chocolate? So how much chocolate do we all eat? During our lives, we will eat enough chocolate to build this house, a fine abode for any passing German fairy tale characters. Each of us eats an average of 8.2 kilograms of chocolate a year, which works out to just over 10,000 chocolate bars in a lifetime. However, modern life isn't all bad. It has thrown up some cheap convenience foods that are far better for you than you might imagine. Although cheap, canned beans are actually very good for us, packed with high-quality protein. Good thing too, as we eat a whopping 845 tins of them over our lives. Enough to fill this bath. However, they do also have some other well-documented and not always welcome side effects. Eating beans can be a notoriously windy business. We all fart. On average, it's between 1 to 1.5 litres of gas a day in 12 to 25 mini eruptions. One thing most of us don't do is light our farts. But what would it look like if you did? What would it look like if you were to get together all the gas you will ever fart in a field somewhere and set fire to it? It would look like this. A 35,815 litre fireball. So far, so much hot air. What about the hard stuff, I hear you cry? In 78.5 years, we will get through 4,239 rolls of toilet paper. That might seem a lot, but there's going to be a lot to clean up. We should perform a bowel movement at least once a day. So how much feces do you think that will create? This much. During the 1970s, a Frenchman named Monsieur Mange-Tout became famous for eating things that weren't food. His diet included numerous bicycles and a Cessna light aircraft. All of this passed through his intestines and out the other end. Though our feces will have a lower scrap value than Monsieur Mange-Tout's, there will still be 2,865 kilograms, or just under 3 tons of it. Given the 50-odd tons we shovel into the other end, this is a surprisingly small amount, which just goes to prove your body is a very efficient machine. Getting rid of one person's waste per day isn't that hard, but dealing with everyone's waste is quite a different story. Getting sewage safely away is one of civilization's most important achievements, without which all the world's great cities would be reduced to disease-ridden swamps in a matter of days. This has led to hundreds of thousands of miles of sewage pipes being laid all around the world to make sure our turds can be quickly and cleanly swept out of our lives. And every day, we send an average of 155 litres of sewage each to be processed in treatment centres like this. But it's not just our faeces and urine that goes down the pan. Every day we flush away millions of tampons, sanitary towels, panty liners and condoms. And some poor person has the unenviable job of getting them out again. As sewage workers, down the ages have been heard to mutter, "It may be muck to some people, but it's our bread and butter." So that's what goes in and comes out of our bodies. The first part of our footprint on the planet. But as we journey out of childhood into our adult years, other desires begin to blossom. As well as our physical impact, one of the most important effects we have on the planet is our relationship with other people. From school to home, from work to the local bar. If we're going to win friends and influence people, we'll need to use language. The language we have at our disposal is pretty vast. The average vocabulary is around 25,000 words. Impressive as this sounds, it pales into insignificance when you learn that the full number of words in our language is over 500,000. However, the total number of words we actually speak is vast, even if we do it by saying the easy ones over and over again. Across the globe, we all speak an average of 4,300 words a day. It's more in some cultures, less in others. But 4,300 is the average. Sometimes we will say great things, profound things, moving things. Most of the time we will say mundane things. But taken together, they tell the stories of our lives. So we've made a book which contains every one of these words, and it looks like this. A 5-volume opus as narrated by you that is filled with love, sadness, pathos and triumph. All 123,205,740 words of it. This is what you will say in your life. And with all that talking, you'll meet people, make friends, and have an impact. So how many people do we all know? It is actually a harder question to answer than it first sounds. There are people you shake hands with, people who serve you in shops, that girl you passed in the street and just can't get out of your mind. To work it out, we need to know what constitutes knowing someone. So researchers just count people who you know by name and that you have contacted within the last 2 years. Armed with this definition, it has been calculated that the average human network across the world is 1,700 people over our lifetime. That's the number of people in this football stand. We will sow the seeds of 1,700 friendships. Some will be friends for life. Some will be workmates and family ties. Some will be people we know just for a few days. But at any one time, you will have approximately 300 people in your social group. And 1,700 people will become part of your footprint. But as puberty strikes and the hormones kick in, we will try to develop a more intimate relationship with some of the people we meet. From an evolutionary point of view, it can be argued that the sole purpose of life is to mate, and thus forge the next link in an unbroken chain of sexual reproduction that stretches back 3.8 billion years to the birth of life itself. Which is one hell of a chat-up line. However, all the well-chosen words in the world won't make any difference to your chances of mating if everyone thinks you smell. Keeping the body clean is essential for fighting off bugs, and we have turned this into something of an art form. We will each take a lot of baths in our lives, so we've laid out a duck for each and every one of them. It adds up to 7,163 of the little fellows, using almost 1 million litres of water. This obsession with washing is quite a recent thing. It is likely that all the great lovers of history would have smelt terrible to us. Romeo, without the benefit of shower gel, spray-on deodorant and toothpaste, probably stank like an unwashed trash can. The only reason Juliet didn't mind is because she wouldn't have smelt any better. But those days are well and truly behind us. You may think your bathroom's cluttered at the moment, but it's not surprising when you see what we use over a lifetime. 656 bars of soap, 198 bottles of shampoo, 272 deodorants, 276 tubes of toothpaste to go on our 78 new toothbrushes, 411 skincare products, 35 tubes of styling gel, 37 bottles of perfume, 25 bottles of nail varnish, and 21 tubes of lipstick. Women will also use 11,000 tampons or sanitary towels. We'll also all use a startling 5.6 bottles of fake tan. Once you have transformed your body into an aromatically acceptable blank canvas, it's time to decorate yourself. If clothes were just about keeping us warm and covering our nakedness, we would all wear nice, practical boiler suits. But we expect more from our clothes than that. Everything we wear says something about who we are. Creating all these different versions of ourselves means we all need big wardrobes. If you add up all the money we spend on clothes in our lives, it would be enough to buy a wardrobe that looks like this. Still claim you've got nothing to wear? Another thing we all spend a long time fussing over is our hair. We wash our hair 11,500 times in an average life. If you decided to save yourself the bother of visiting the hairdressers, then you would eventually end up with hair as long as this. Hair is made up of a very strong type of protein cells called keratin. These cells are pushed out by our bodies in continuous thin strands at the rate of approximately 12 centimetres a year to help regulate our temperature. So in a lifetime, you'll churn out 9 metres 42 centimetres of the stuff. Useful as this would be while rescuing princesses from prison towers, it would be a nightmare around revolving doors and jet engines. Facial hair on men grows a fraction faster, but doesn't start growing till later. So the best you could hope for is a beard 9 metres 15 centimetres long. Still long enough to get you honorary membership of ZZ Top. Our nails are made of the same dead cells as our hair. Left unclipped, we would end up with talons as long as this, a spine-tingling 286 centimetres over our lifetime. So we've got a wide circle of friends. We look and smell just right. Some of us may even want to add some jewellery, tattoos, or even plastic surgery. Surely now we're ready to go out and find a mate? Ah, hold on. There is one other thing which seems essential in the modern mating ritual. We have been making alcohol for thousands and thousands of years, longer than any other drug. We just love the way it stimulates the production of beta-endorphin and interferes with synaptic firing. In some countries, people drink nothing at all. In others, drink is central to their national identity. But if you average it out, then this is how much beer is drunk in a lifetime. 10,351 pints. And this is the average amount of wine we will all get through in our lives. 1,694 bottles. If you're enjoying a quick drink while watching this programme and have got carried away with all the excitement, then you're in good company. 0.7% of the world population is drunk at any one time. But remember, these are all averages. If you're sitting there thinking, I drink way more than that, then you should probably consider cutting down a bit. When you're young, seeing how much your body can take is part of the fun. However, all this excess will have inevitable consequences. On average, we will all vomit twice a year, which adds up to this: 5 bucket loads over a lifetime. Alcohol is obviously not the only cause, but the aftermath of a night out does make up the bulk of the figures. And young people pushing themselves too far dramatically bumps up the average for everyone else. But all this socialising will also lead to other things. On average, we will have 10 different sexual partners over our lifetime. Obviously, we were desperate to find out for you how much other people have sex. But asking people straight out is a very hit-and-miss affair. Some people lie. Other people exaggerate. Most people simply forget. So statisticians tend to ask, when did you last have sex? If you ask enough people this question, they can model the results across the whole population to get a pretty clear picture of what we're all getting up to between the sheets. And when these calculations are done, we end up with a figure of just under twice a week during our sexually active lives, or 4,239 times over a lifetime. But in the end, it isn't just sex we're after. The majority of us are trying to find someone to share our lives with. And on average, we all fall in love 3 times. It has been said that there is nothing romantic about marriage, since the essence of romance is uncertainty. But what could be more uncertain than tying the knot? The average marriage these days only lasts 11.5 years. But that's no way to approach such matters, which is why 70% of us will still give marriage at least one go. So is all the bathing, scrubbing, preening, drinking, dancing and dodgy fumbling we will have worth it? Of course it was. And we'll all do it again as soon as possible. We've reached the time in our journey when we will be buying houses, setting up home and earning money to spend on all life has to offer. And this is where the footprint starts to get really big. It isn't such a long time ago that all one really needed in life was a couple of loincloths and a pointy stick. But now we need stuff. Loads and loads of stuff. we will all get through 3.5 washing machines, 3.4 fridges, 3.2 microwaves, 4.8 TVs, 9.8 DVD players, 15 computers, not to mention the ovens, hi-fis, video players, Walkmans, phones, beds, sofas, chairs, cameras, exercise bikes, and 1,001 other consumer durables that are yet to be invented, but which we will soon not be able to live without. One area which is now considered essential, but which barely existed 20 years ago, is electronic goods like computers. Making the average PC requires at least 240 kilograms of fossil fuels, along with 22 kilograms of assorted chemicals. Add to that 1.5 tons of water used in production, and your desktop system has used up the weight of a large car in materials before it even leaves the factory. But it's not just a question of making all these things. There's also the huge challenge of getting rid of them all when we're finished with them. Earlier, we saw the amount of food packaging we throw away. Well, that was just the start of it. Each one of us will be responsible for sending 40 tons of waste to landfill during our lives. That's 2 of these containers full to the brim each. Consumerism is now so deeply ingrained in our culture that even our religious festivals have been turned into little more than giant shopping opportunities. In many Christian countries, Christmas has become all about giving presents. Each year is bigger than the last. Some year will go too far. Christmas will reach the critical mass required to become an unstoppable force, and we'll just keep buying, eating, drinking, giving, wrapping, unwrapping, decorating and making merry till all the money runs out, the streets are choked with tinsel, and the whole country grinds to a halt. Another bastion of our consumer culture is the car. For much of human history, entire empires would have gone to war to get their hands on an object as wondrous as this. Now we all expect to have at least one sitting in the driveway. Over a lifetime, we will own a mini fleet of vehicles, starting with trikes and bikes, then graduating on to an average of 8 cars each, before reverting to slightly more sedate modes of transport. So we have the capacity to go a long way in our lives. But how far will we actually travel? The average person walks 197 miles every year. That's 15,464 miles in our 78.5 years. Just enough to get from Britain to Bali and back again. But this figure is dwarfed by the distance we travel in our cars. We each drive an average of 5,766 miles a year, which adds up to a hefty 452,662 miles during our lives. That's from here to the moon and back. And all this driving requires fuel, which means masses and masses of fossil fuel. Still, these days you don't need to leave your front door. The world will come to you. As well as consuming material goods, we also consume an enormous amount of information and culture, and by far the biggest contributor to this is television. It has brought the whole world to our living rooms. Within a few minutes of anything happening anywhere on the planet, we can all be watching it live on television. We watch television for 148 minutes every day. 900 hours in a year, 2,944 days of our lives. That's a full 8 years spent sitting in front of the box. Despite its best endeavours, television hasn't quite managed to kill off the written word. The average person will read 533 books during their life. However, 3% of people can barely read, and a further 40% of people choose to read no books at all. As well as all these books, we've also got our daily newspapers to give us a snapshot of what's going on in the world. We tend to buy newspapers that reflect our point of view, that confirm our suspicions about the world. Reading the news on any given day in a tabloid compared to a colour newspaper, you'd be forgiven for thinking they were writing about different countries. About the only thing which the papers seem to agree on is that doing Sudoku is really good fun. Not that it seems to dampen our appetite for them. Over our lifetime, we will read this many newspapers, 2,455 newspapers weighing in at 1.5 tons. And to create the books and newspapers you will read will take 24 trees. Middle age is also a time when government policy really starts to affect you. What the government decide will change the way your children are educated, what happens when you get ill, how many new roads are built, and whether you can go to Iraq for your holidays. Over your lifetime, you will be offered the chance to vote in roughly 50 elections. And this is how much pencil lead it takes to make 50 crosses. This is your physical contribution to democracy. And you don't even have to supply your own pencil. However, if being baffled and infuriated by politicians becomes too much for you, then you may have to try other ways of improving your mood. Luckily, no matter how bad it all gets, things will always seem a little bit better with a nice cup of tea. If you drink 3 cups a day, like the average person in Britain, then it will add up to this: 74,802 cups of tea over a lifetime. The soothing properties of tea were first discovered in ancient China 5,000 years ago, when leaves of a tea plant are said to have drifted into a pot of boiling water as the then emperor and his entourage rested by the road on the way to a far-flung province of China. From that moment onwards, tea has won over country after country with its deceptively simple charms. It is now drunk all across the globe, with rancid yak butter in Tibet, with ice and a swizzle stick in Long Island, and of course in Britain, where it is the much-loved national drink. However, there are times in life when even a cup of tea won't cure all ills. And at times like these, we turn to our doctors. On average, we visit the doctor 314 times during our lives, and this will usually result in a prescription. By the time you are 60, you will be well on your way to munching through your lifetime's allocation of 30,000 tablets. The breakdown of our bodies will be a source of anguish for many people. We may even shed the odd tear as the sands of time begin to run out. We all associate tears with suffering, physical pain, bereavement. But the tear ducts in the eye have actually been gently weeping throughout our lives to keep the eyeball lubricated. Over a lifetime, this amounts to an astonishing quantity. This much, in fact. 61.5 litres of them. Tissue, anyone? But tears are not the only thing your body is continually shedding. Look around you. That dust glinting in the early evening sunlight is mostly you. The remains of skin cells that only last a handful of days. And that's not the only part of you that wears out. Your skeleton is completely renewed every 10 years. Even well-protected cells deep within your muscles are only 16 years old. The longest living cells are in your brain. These contain all your memories, the faces of the people you have loved, places you have been, things you have seen, all the information that makes you, you. Since nothing physically remains of the original you, the oldest thing about you is your first memory. In the end, all we will be left with is our memories and our dreams. We will have been dreaming all our lives, and by the time we are 78.5, we will have had an average of 104,390 of them. Dreams, like memories, come from the oldest part of our bodies deep within our brains. So while they may seem ethereal, our memories and dreams are actually the most enduring things we possess. Of the 1,700 people each of us will know, 305 will die of heart disease. 179 by stroke. 111 will succumb to flu and pneumonia. 99 will die of lung cancer. 92 from lower respiratory diseases. 63 will die of dementia and Alzheimer's. 49 will die of cancer of the colon. 32 from breast cancer. You will also know 10 people who will take their own life. 9 who will be killed in road accidents, along with 1 person who will die in a fire. Thankfully, only 1 in 3 of us will know anyone who is murdered. So after all the figures that define our lives, there is one statistical certainty at the end of it all. Given that we know it's going to happen, perhaps we should just make the most of the time we do have and let death take care of itself. In this film, we have tried to show you what your life will look like in material terms. We have seen the food we will eat and the waste coming out again. We have seen the people you will meet and the words you will say to them, the lengths you will go to be liked and perhaps even loved. We have seen all the wind you will ever pass and the rubbish you throw away. We have seen the books you will read We have seen the pills we use to keep the wolf from the door. We have seen how you affect the people around you and the legacy you will leave behind for those yet to come. This is your impact on planet Earth. This is your human footprint. But we brought nothing into this world, and we can take nothing out of it. During the 3.8 billion years of life on Earth, continents have formed and disappeared many times. Only the oceans are eternal. So this is really where our journey begins and ends. A lifetime gone by in 415 million blinks of an eye.